All right, I will say good morning, or good tavach. It is a great zechus, Baruch Hashem, to be able to begin our first full week of Maseches Sanhedrin. A tremendous zechus. Let's begin by thanking all of our sponsors. To thank our annual TALMUD Torah sponsor for Tavshin Pei, the Tilson Mishpach of Eretz Yisrael, for dedicating all the Shirman Drashos this year in the zechus of finishing Maseches Ba'Basra and the Meretz Hashem beginning on the journey of Maseches Sanhedrin. Our TALMUD Torah sponsors for the month of Kislev, Habali and Latova, Josh and Becca Friedman, the creation of the Yahrzeit of Josh's father, Yisroel Yehuda, HaRav Chaim Rephael, for the zechus, the safe return of all of our hostages and the security of our precious soldiers. Sammy and Malka Esterson, in memory of their parents, Yitzchak Laib ben Aharon HaKohen, Sarah Rachel bas Baruch Avraham, Hinda bas Henech Efrayim, and Naftali Yonah Hy ben Beatrice, Miriam, and Yigal. We hope that in the merit of our TALMUD Torah, all of the neshamas and aliyah, the families in Nechama, the Nadira Chalitz Baruch Hu, the Meretz Hashem, bring our hostages home b'shalom and b'karov, and our holy soldiers will be successful b'chol ma'aseh yedehem. But with that, let us begin. Today's daf is daf Hey. We are picking up in Meretz Hashem on the bottom of Daled Amud Beis. Last line, Tan Rabbanon. So we'll say some exciting Gemara ahead of us today. So the Gemara says as follows: Tan Rabbanon. Dinei Mamanis b'shlosha. Okay, so one thing we've established already is that the halacha is Dinei Mamanis, financial adjudication of financial disputes or financial law is done with a beis din of 3. However, top of Hey, V'mhaya mumcha l'rabim done afilu yichidi. So this is very interesting. So remember, the Gemara introduces us to the concept now of what we call a yachid mumcha. What's a yachid mumcha? Yachid mumcha is a person who is a singular expert. This is someone, again, who is recognized for his expertise in the area of financial matters, and therefore Allah L'maisa is able to judge by himself. Now Rashi points out over here, so remember again, we had this actually a few days ago when we started the Masechta. The lashon of B'tzedek Tishbos as Amisecha is a singular lashon, right? Which it seems to indicate to us that halacha l'maisa, even one individual has the ability to adjudicate the case. Now, the truth is, Rashi also points out over here, "Kasavar ein kan Erev Parshios," and also again, his particular opinion holds that we don't subscribe to Erev Parshios. Remember again, which means that all of the pieces in Parshas Mishpatim are essentially interwoven with each other. Okay, but leaving that last piece aside, the idea of us is this is the concept of a yachid mumcha, and then haya mumcha l'rabim. If ultimately again you are someone who is mumcha, and you are known as an expert amongst the rabbim, don afilu yichidi. You could judge even by yourself. Rabbi say, there's a tremendous Musar Haskell in this, which is, if you look at that lashon, then haya mumcha l'rabbim. The truth is, if you feel confident that you are a person who is an expert in all other kinds of people, right? If you really believe that you actually have everyone else figured out, that you know how every single other person operates, then you know what? Dan yichidi. Then you have a right to pass judgment on others. But if you're not a yachid, if you're not mumcha l'rabim, if you're not an expert in how every single other person operates, then probably better not to pass judgment on people. Which will say, again, obviously, there's no one person who could claim. There are many people who might think that they are a mumcha l'rabim, who think that they understand how all people operate, but the truth is, it's not true. No one is really a mumcha l'rabim except the Ribono Shel Olam. So because I'm not a mumcha l'rabim, because I don't know how everyone else operates, it is so much better to withhold judgment when it comes to other people. All right, but that's the hashkafa. The halacha, however, the Gemara says, if you are an expert in monetary matters, you have the ability to go ahead and judge by yourself, even without a beis din. Rav Nachman says, "Kigon ana din dan dinei mamonis biachas." So Rav Nachman says, like me, I can judge, I can adjudicate monetary cases by myself. Now, I will say, the Gemara is like this. Very interesting to see to yourself. Wow, sounds like a shtick gaiva, right? A little bit. So I will say, it's not. People confuse this concept, and people think that to be an anav, to be humble, means to be self-debasing. That's not what humility is. Humility is a recognition of what you are, but also what you're not. So for example, Moshe Rabbeinu, the Torah describes as the anav mikol adam. No one was as humble as Moshe Rabbeinu, but yet Moshe Rabbeinu felt fully confident arguing with HaKadosh Baruch Hu. So how does that work? Because Moshe Rabbeinu knew who he was. But because he knew who he was, he also knew that he had the capacity to be more. When a person is, right? So arrogance is thinking that you're more than you are. Right? An arrogant person is a person who thinks that he possesses all of these qualities or all of these accomplishments when he doesn't. A humble person knows his accomplishments, knows his strengths, but also knows that he has the ability to accomplish so much more. So Rav Nachman is not making an arrogant statement. He's making a factual statement. I know who I am, and I'm an expert in Dinei Mamanas. I could judge by myself. Kegon ana, dan Dinei Mamanas biyachid. So Rabbi Chia said, like me, I can go ahead and adjudicate monetary law on my own. Okay, so we'll say, so now we're introduced to the concept of a yachid mumcha. Ibailo. Now this is very interesting. So we'll say, so what does this mean? So now we're gonna delve a little bit more like into the qualifications of this yachid mumcha. So kigon ana, digamirna, disavirna, vinakitna reshusa. So in other words, what do you need in order to be certified as a yachid mumcha, singular expert? So again, obviously gamirna. Now if you look at Rashi, Rashi says gamirna shmuos dinin mirabosai. We'll say, so obviously step number one is you're a person who learned from your Rebbe, right? Which I will say is actually very interesting as well, because what do you see from here? It's interesting that Rashi does, I would have thought the definition of Gamirna, what's the definition of Gamirna? How would you translate Gamirna? You're learned. If you look at Rashi Dafka says, Shmuos dinin meirabosai. In other words, no, it's not just enough to learn. I've learned from my Rebbe. So we'll say, what's the difference? We all know this. This is part of the profundity in Torah, right? I think in any other discipline, you could learn knowledge, and you could go ahead and you could acquire the knowledge, and to a certain degree, you could acquire the knowledge perfectly, even without necessarily the right teacher. In other words, the right teacher may help you absorb the knowledge, but lav dafka that I need that teacher in order to acquire the knowledge. Right? I was just speaking to someone the other week about accounting. It's a long story. I was actually trying to encourage them to go to accounting, right? So let me say, like, there are certain disciplines you can learn, and you don't. A teacher might help you, but you don't need. Torah's different. Torah's different. So what the Gemara is saying is, if you're going to become that singular expert, it's not just enough to have absorbed the information. You need a Rebbe. Because that Rebbe, especially again, when we're talking about over here, like Psak Halacha, about Paskin Halacha, that Rebbe is going to teach you nuance. There's shimush, spending time with that Rebbe. There's the intangibles of Torah, the intangibles of adjudication. So it's not just enough to absorb information. You have to have that Torah role model from whom you are absorbing that information as well. It's incredible. So again, in order to become a Yachid Mumcha, a singular expert, obviously Gamirna, you have a Rebbe who you're learning from. Savirna. The Rashi says they're incredible. Yodea ani lahosif uliyashev tamim midaiti. What is Savirna? Svara. What's Svara? Svara is, I know how to take what I learned and apply it to other circumstances. Now, both say this is uniquely like judicial. In other words, the whole avoda of a dayan, of a judge, is the ability to take information and then the ability to apply it, because often cases that come before the dayan don't exactly mirror the halachas in the Gemara. So you have to know how to take what you learned. So again, there's gamirna, I have the information I got from my Rebbe. Savirna, I know how to take what I learned and I know how to apply it to my particular circumstances. Let's just point out, by the way, these are the processes necessary in our own spiritual development as well, right? It's not enough just learning the information. I need a Rebbe. I need someone like who I can look to, and then I have to learn how to take what I learned and how do I apply it to my life. You know, I will say, you could take Torah, and Torah says, who doesn't love Torah? Right? It's incredible. It's incredible. The hard part of, when we're young, maybe like learning is a little bit more of a challenge. As we get older, the process of learning is so profoundly enjoyable. It's so enjoyable. What's the difficult part of Torah? What's the difficult part? The application. Right? Taking what I've learned and then applying it in my life, that's where often it becomes a bit more complicated. But learning without application, it's only part of the picture. So again, there's Gamirna, there's Savirna, Vinakita Rishusa. And, this is interesting, do you have to get Rishus? Do you have to get permission from the local authority in order to go ahead and adjudicate? So here, Rashi says, Vinakita Rishusa Merish Kalusa, Daino Dine Mamanis Biyachidi. So it says, here's what's interesting. So in other words, this is speaking specifically in Bavel. So in order to become certified as a singular judge, what we call the Yachid Mumcha, single expert. So obviously, I have to learn from my Rabbi, Gamirna, Savirna. I have to have analytical skills to be able to apply what I learned to particular circumstances. And do you also require permission from the Reish Galusa? Right? In other words, do you have to have, and by the way, there's not just a din in Bavel, remember again, in Bavel, it's the Reish Galusa. In Eretz Yisrael, who is it? It's the Nasi. It's the Nasi. But the question the Gemara is asking over here is, do you need permission from the local authority in order to go ahead and adjudicate cases as a single expert? So the Gemara says, dine lo dina. But perhaps even if you have the first two, but you don't have permission from the Reish Galusa, maybe you're not allowed to judge as a singular judge. Odoma, afagav delo nakit reshusa dine dinar. Maybe not. Maybe not. Maybe you don't need permission. In other words, as long as you have gamirna v'savirna, as long as you're learned and you have the ability to apply what you learned to cases that come before you, maybe that's enough, and you don't need the permission of the Reish Galusa. So let's analyze Tashma. The Marzutra, Rab Nachman, Don Dine Vita. Oh, interesting. Marzutra, the son of Rab Nachman, adjudicated a case, and what happened? He made a mistake. He made a mistake in he erred in his ruling. Asla kamed Rav Yosef. So he came before Rav Yosef and said, so what do we do now? Amar Laib. So Rav Yosef said as follows: Im kiblucha alayu lo tishalim. If the litigants accepted your ruling, and they said, in other words, they agreed to whatever it is that you paskin, that is what is going to be the final ruling, then you are not obligated, Marzutra, you're not obligated to go ahead and pay them back. So we'll say, take a look at Rashi for just a moment. I kablucha alayhu legamre lelich acharecha im ledin im letos lo yitba'ucha lo tishalim. So Rabbi says, this is very interesting. So Marzutra ruled erroneously, and essentially, again, they came before Rav Yosef. They asked Rav Yosef, does Marzutra have to pay back the affected party? So Rav Yosef essentially said, if the litigants accepted you, Marzutra, as unequivocal psak, you do not have to pay back. Now, both say, at first glance, that sounds strange. Why would anyone ever do that? Right? Why would two litigants ever say to the judge, no matter what you say, whether you're right or you're wrong, we're going to go by you. So this will become, it's going to be a little bit more of a topic in tomorrow's daf, so we'll hold it till then. But Lamaisa, he said to him, if they accepted you, you don't have to pay back. If they didn't accept you, in other words, if they only signed up for a correct ruling, then halacha l'maisa you would have to pay back. So Shema Mina, what do you see from here? Kilo nakit reshusa dine. So we'll say, what do you see from here? You see from here that halacha l'maisa, even if the judge does, first of all, take a look at Rashi. I'm sorry, just one more point. Ilo zil shlim im lav kiblu ta'uscha aleihem da amru lacha dayanta din Torah zil shalim umiu mahader dina lo ama gamer v'saver. Here's what's interesting. So, if you notice, by the way, what happens over here, what Rav Yosef essentially says to Marzutra is like this: if the litigants accepted you as an unequivocal arbiter, right, then whatever you did stands. Right? Whatever you did stands, you have no obligation to pay anyone back. If they said, Marzutra are coming to you for you to paskin in accordance with halacha, right, psak, then if Marzutra ruled erroneously, he would be obligated to pay back the impacted party. But interestingly enough, what doesn't happen? The ruling is not reversed. The ruling stands, but the judge, Marzutra, would have an obligation to make the affected party whole. What do you see from that? Apparently the Gemara understands that Marzutra did not have the permission of the Reish Galusa to go ahead and adjudicate cases singularly as a Yachid Mumcha. And what do you see from here? Shmamina kilo nakid reshusei dina shmamina. What do you see from here? That even if a judge doesn't receive permission from the Reish Galusa, but he is recognized by the general population as a Yachid Mumcha, as an expert, he is allowed to adjudicate cases. Okay, so we'll say, so again, so halacha l'maisa, it appears, so number one, we learned two things so far. Number one, we are introduced to the concept of Yachid Mumcha, an individual who is an expert, an individual expert, and therefore he is permitted to rule on monetary law by himself. Halacha l'maisa, he could also is allowed to do it without the permission of the local Jewish government. In other words, he could do it without the permission of the Reish Galusa, he could do it without the permission of the Nasi in Eretz Yisrael. Now, watch this. Amarav, Haiman de Baile Meidan Dina, The tied me by lemiftara. Now listen to this. Comes along Rav, and Rav says like this. What happens if a judge, right? So a guy, we'll call him Ruvain. Ruvain is a Yachid Mumcha. He's a Yachid Mumcha. But Ruvain wants like liability insurance. He doesn't, judges sometimes make mistakes also. He wants to be covered. It's like malpractice insurance, right? He wants his judicial malpractice insurance. So what does he do? Literally translated that if he makes a mistake, he doesn't want to have to be personally liable. Lishkal Rishusa mi Reish Galusa. Then get permission from the Reish Galusa. If you operate essentially with a license from the Reish Galusa, that gives you professional coverage. Right? And therefore, even if you make a mistake, you will not be obligated to go ahead and pay back the impacted party. Okay, beautiful. So we'll say, now another halacha, although a Yachid Mumcha is permitted to go ahead and rule without the permission of the Reish Galusa, but getting the permission of the Reish Galusa gives you malpractice insurance. Beautiful. Says the Gemara, Pshita, mehacha lahacha, or mehasam lahasam mahani. Shabbos goes without saying that obviously if a person goes ahead and gets permission from the Reish Galusa, hacha means here in Bavel. Person gets permission from the Reish Galusa here in Bavel, that halacha l'maisa, they could practice, so to speak, their law, right? They could paskin anywhere in Bavel. Similarly again, hasam lahasam in Eretz Yisrael. If you get permission from the Nasi, that gives you the ability to adjudicate cases all over Eretz Yisrael. Here's the Shaila. Umehacha lahasam nami mahani. Dahacha shevet v'hasam mechokek. This is very interesting. Similarly, if you get permission from the Reish Galusa in Bavel, that gives you the ability to adjudicate cases in Eretz Yisrael. And I say, you have to understand something. This is a fascinating dynamic. That from the Gemara's perspective, not from the Gemara's perspective, the reality was, in times of the Gemara, the center of Jewish life was in Bavel, not in Eretz Yisrael. So as such, if you received the permission from the Reish Galusa to adjudicate cases, that permission covered Eretz Yisrael as well. Why? And as interesting as Lashon over here is because Hacha in Bavel were called the Shevet, the rod, and Hasam, Eretz Yisrael, is called the scepter. The rod is stronger than the scepter. Kedisanya, here we go. The Yasser Shevet mi Yehuda. So we'll say, so the possible is Parshas Vaychi. When Yaakov Avinu goes ahead and when Yaakov Avinu goes ahead and gives his children brachos on his deathbed, he says the pasuk is Lo Yasser Shevet mi Yehuda u'michokik mi bein raglav. The staff will not go away from Yehuda, and the scepter from between his feet. Ad ki yavo Shiloh, until Shiloh comes, v'lo yikasamim, and to him nations will assemble. Interestingly enough, this is one of the only psukim in the Torah that has any type of scriptural reference to Mashiach. Shiloh is Mashiach. It's machlokes, but Shiloh is Mashiach. This is actually also, interestingly enough, one of the psukim that is most corrupted by the Christians to bring a biblical proof for Yashka. They posit that Shiloh is Yashka. Okay, wrong shit. Anyway, so we'll say, but just interesting. So anyway, the Gemara says as follows: Kedisanya lo Yasser Shevet mi Yehuda. What does it mean when it says the scepter shall not depart from Yehuda? Elu Rosh Golio shebebavel sherodin es Yisrael b'shevet. This refers ultimately again to the Reish Galusa, because the Reish Galusa rules with a staff. As Rabbi say, it's very interesting. The Reish Galusa ruled with an iron fist. Now, sometimes by the Reish Galusa is not the name of a person. The Reish Galusa is the name of an office, of a position, the head of the Galus. Remember again, sometimes also they were shtickle corrupt. They were not. The Reish Galusa wasn't always occupied by virtuous people. Anyway, but the point is, they ruled with an iron fist. Umechokik mi bein raglov, the scepter from between his feet. Elu b'nei banav shal Hillel. This refers to the grandchildren of Hillel, Shemalamdin Torah Berabim, who teach Torah ultimately again in public. So the idea over here is, if you notice the differences between the way leadership in Bavel is described and leadership in Eretz Yisrael is described. Leadership in Bavel is described as literally again authoritarian. Leadership in Eretz Yisrael is described as theological. Right, or religious. They're teaching Torah. So the idea over here is there was much greater authoritarian leadership in the Jewish community in Babel than there was in Eretz Yisrael. So therefore, if you got permission to be a Yachid Mumcha from the Reish Galusa that allowed you to practice in Eretz Yisrael as well. Okay, so the Gemara says, "Mehasam lahacha mai." But what happens if you got permission from the Nasi? If you got permission from the Nasi to go ahead and be a Yachid Mumcha, right, to be a single expert, were you allowed to practice in Eretz in Bavel or not? So let's analyze. So Tashma, to Rabbi Bar Chana done Dina Bita. Rabbi Bar Chana adjudicated the case as Yachid Mumcha, right, in Bavel. Now I will say he paskined in Bavel and he made a mistake. So what happened? So ultimately, again, if the litigants accepted your ruling upon them, just totally accepted, then you have no obligation to pay. V'ilo zil shlim. But if not, go and pay back. That's interesting. Now, Rabbi Bar Chana was given permission to adjudicate cases as a Yachid Mumcha. Who is he given permission by? By the Nasi in Eretz Yisrael. And what do you see from here? That ultimately, again, there's a scenario where he would have to pay. So what do we see? Shmamina, mehasam lahacha, lo mahani shmamina. What do you see from here? That getting permission in Eretz Yisrael does not give you coverage in Bavel. Right? Does not give you coverage in Bavel. So we'll say, so fascinatingly enough, so obviously getting permission in Bavel covers you anywhere in Bavel and in Eretz Yisrael. Getting permission in Eretz Yisrael covers you in Eretz Yisrael, but apparently did not cover you in Bavel. Incredible. So the Gemara says, really? V'lo mahani? It doesn't help. V'ha Rabba bar Rav Huna ki ava minsi bahadi the Beirish Kalusa. Yeah, listen to this. When Rabba bar Rav Huna would fight, right? Because sometimes, again, different Rabbanim would get into some issues with the Reish Kalusa. When he would fight with Reish Kalusa, he would say, Amar lav minaychu nakitna reshusa me abamari va'abamari me Rav v'Rav me Rabbi Chia v'Rabbi me Rabbi. So listen to this. When Rabbi Rav Huna would get into it with the Reish Kalusa, he would say, hey, Reish Kalusa, my authority does not derive from you. My authority derives ultimately, again, from Abamari. Abamari gets it from Rav. Rav gets Rabbi Chia. Rabbi Chia gets it from Rebbe. So you see over here that Lamaisa, Rabbi Rav Huna was saying that his power comes, right? His authority came from Eretz Yisrael, and they worked even in Bavel. To which the Gemara says, "B'milsa da'amahu da'okim lehu." So it's very interesting. So Rabbi Rav Huna was speaking. Well, it was talking tough, but Lamaisa, his words were empty. It's not true. It's not true. His authority to rule on things in Bavel did not come from Eretz Yisrael. As much as he had authority from Eretz Yisrael, his authority to rule, in fact, did come from the Reish Kalusa, but he did not want to yield to the authority of the Reish Kalusa. Okay. So the Gemara goes right there. So the Gemara says, okay, so now that ultimately, again, certification in Eretz Yisrael does not help for Bavel, Rabbi Bar Chana Rishusa Dinakit Lamali. Why did Rabbi Bar Chana get permission from Eretz Yisrael? So remember again, the Gemara just said before that Rabbi Bar Huna, right? Rabbi Bar Huna or Rabbi Bar Chana, two different yourselves. So he got permission from Eretz Yisrael. Right, but yet he also got permission from the Reish Kalusa because his permission from Eretz Yisrael didn't work in Bavel. If permission from Eretz Yisrael doesn't work in Bavel, and you have to get certified in Bavel anyway, then why get certified for Eretz Yisrael? Right? Why get that permission? To which the Gemara says, "La'ayoros ha'omdin ala gvulin." No, because we'll say there were certain border cities that, technically speaking, were in Bavel, but really consider themselves to be parts of Eretz Yisrael. So for those border cities, Rabbi Bar Chana thought it would be more useful to have permission from the Nasi than to have permission from the Reish Kalusa. Okay, look at Rashi. Ala Gvulin, Hanim Shachos Achar Eretz Yisrael. So these were border cities that, technically speaking, were in the territorial area of Bavel, but felt, in other words, were more deferential or felt themselves a part of Eretz Yisrael. Incredible. Okay, so what's this thing? Goes weiter. Marishusa. So, by the way, how do you get this certification? Right? How does this on our side show up at the office of the Reish Kalusa? And what's the process for actually getting certified? So Rashi says, "My Rishusa, the Rabbi Bar Chana." So, for example, right? How did a guy like Rabbi Bar Chana, how did a person, how did a Talmud Chacham like Rabbi Bar Chana, how did he get certified? So the Gemara says as follows. The Gemara says, "My Rishusa, ki havenochis Rabbi Bar Chana." I just want to point out how beautiful this is before that you have these border cities. Ayaras ha'omdin ala gvulin. So right, see, these were cities that were technically speaking in the territorial area of Bavel, but because they were next to Eretz Yisrael, were considered almost like an extension of Eretz Yisrael. What do you see from here? You see from here that sometimes just allowing yourself to be next to holiness, even if you're not in the holiness itself, but just being, we'll call it holiness juxtaposed, has a tremendous impact in who and what you are. And this is such a profound yesod in general for how we look at life. So often we think that it doesn't matter who your chevra is. Right? Whatever, I could associate with whoever I want, it's not going to have an impact on me. It's not true. Whoever you're juxtaposed to, whoever you're samach to, whatever you're samach to, or we allow ourselves to experience or to be exposed to certain influences, and we just assume that it's not going to have an impact on me. I'm strong enough. It's not true. Whatever you're samach to, whatever you're juxtaposed to, whatever you're next to, the people you associate with, the experiences you have, the different things that you allow into your home and into your life, everything has an impact on us. If cities in Bavel, just because they're next to Eretz Yisrael, could be treated like Eretz Yisrael, then or the more so we see that everything that we allow ourselves to be juxtaposed to has a tremendous impact on who and what we are. The Gemara is right. My Rishusa. Listen to this. So when Rabbi Bar Chana came to Bavel, right? So Rabbi Bar Chana was originally coming from Eretz Yisrael. So now he comes to Bavel, right? And he wants to get Rishus. He wants to go ahead and get permission from the Reish Kalusa to adjudicate. So Amrlei Rav Chia LeRebbi. So Rav Chia said to Rebbe as follows: Ben Achi Yored LeBavel. Right. So literally again, Ben Achi Yored LeBavel. Listen to this. The son of my brother is Kai. So this is Rabbi Chia. So again, so just get the names correct. Rabbi Bar Chana is coming from Bavel to Eretz Yisrael. Sorry, from Eretz Yisrael to Bavel. He wants to get permission from the Reish Kalusa to be a Yachid Mumcha, to be a single expert. So now what happened? So Rabbi Chia says to Rabbi, Ben Achi, the son of my brother, Yored LeBavel, is coming down to Bavel. Yoreh? Yeah, I both say Yoreh. Rashi points out over here, is he permitted to rule on matters of Isser v'Heter? Rashi says Yoreh. Rashi says Isser v'Heter. Amrlam Rebbe Yoreh. Or come on, so the idea Yoreh. What's Isser v'Heter? Halachos of Kashrus, right? Hilchos Nida, Hilchos Shabbos. These are Isser v'Heter type of thing. So Yoreh, is Rabbi Bar Chana allowed to paskin in matters of Isser and Heter? And Rabbi responded, Yoreh. Yadin, is he allowed to adjudicate monetary law? Yadin. Yatir besuros. Is he permitted to be matir bechoros? What does it mean matir bechoros? Bechoros is the firstborn animal. Firstborn animal becomes mundane, non-sanctified if what? If it has a mum, has a blemish. But you have to know what type of blemishes remove the firstborn sanctity. So is Rabbi Bar Chana permitted to go ahead and be matir bechoros? Yatir. Yes, he is. He is. We'll say, by the way, I'll tell you something amazing. Today, so right, we have smicha today, but our smicha today is not real smicha like what they had in terms of the Gemara. But if you notice today, what smicha is called is you get different types of smicha. There's what's called yoreh or yadin. So yoreh is in matters of Isser Heter. Yadin is in monetary law. So it's interesting. Why is it called yoreh, yadin? This Gemara. It originally was a question answer. Yoreh, is this person permitted to paskin, right? Matters of Isser Heter? Yoreh, yes. Yadin, are they permitted to go ahead and paskin matters of monetary law? Yadin, yes they are. Now again, I don't know that any smicha of matir for bechoros today, but all right, we'll have to reintroduce that soon. So the Gemara says, "Kihava nachis Rav LeBavel." Listen to this: when Rav came to Bavel, Amarle Rabbi Chia, Amarle Rabbi Chia, the Rebbe. So Rabbi Chia said to Rebbe as follows: Ben Achosi, the son of my sister, Yored LeBavel, is coming down to Bavel. So this is now Rav. It's coming from Eretz Yisrael to Bavel. So Yoreh, is he permitted to pass in matters of Isser v'Heter? Yoreh, yes he is. Yadin, is he allowed to go and pass in matters of monetary law? Yadin. Yatir bechoros, can he go ahead and permit firstborn animals? Nope. Al yatir. Oh, okay. A little awkward. Hey, we'll see what's happening over here. We'll see why Rav was not permitted to go ahead and be matir bechoros. And the Gemara says, by the way, just as an aside, Ma'ishna lemar dekakari ben achi, or Ma'ishna lemar dekakari ben achoso. Why ultimately again is Rabbi Chia calling one of them the son of his brother and one of them the son of his sister. Both of them were the sons of his brothers. So the Gemara says, I'll tell you, maybe one of them was the son of his brother, the son of his sister. So the Gemara says, no, Amar Mar, Aivu v'chana v'shila umarta v'Rabbi Chia, Kulu b'nei Abba bar Acha Kulu b'nei Abba bar Acha Karsala mikarfri havu. So Rabbi said, but yet again, they were all, so the Gemara says, all of these people, Aivu, Chana, Shila, Marta, and Rabbi Chia, were all the sons of the same father. As such, again, both of these young men were both sons of his brother, not sons of his sister. So why did Rabbi Chia call one of them the son of his brother, the son of his sister? To which the Gemara says, Rav, Barachua, Dahava, Bar Achse. Because interestingly enough, Rav was actually both the son of Rabbi Chia's brother and sister. Okay, a bit of explanation on that. Right? So I'll say, so Rashi points out over here that if you look at Rashi says, Ivo, Avod Rav, Havakim. So also say, interestingly enough, so Ivo, who was the father of Rav, actually married his stepsister. Now, what does that mean? So he married his father, right? His father and mother. His mother died. His father remarried another woman. That woman came to the marriage with a daughter. Sorry. So actually, again, so Rav's parents were technically speaking step-brother, step-sister, but totally unrelated. So because of that, Rabbi Chia called Rav the son of his brother and the son of his sister. Okay. Fine. So the Gemara says as follows. Good. So Rav bar Achua Dahava bar Achse, Rav bar Chana bar Achua Dala bar Achse. Okay, so therefore Rabbi Chia responds. So therefore again, Rav was actually technically speaking the son of Rabbi Chia's brother and sister. Rav bar Chana was only the son of his brother and not the son of his sister. Fine. V by Sema. The other possibility is Omen Beis Z by Sema. Ashim Chachmosel Dechsiv. Shabbos is actually quite beautiful. The other possibility is the reason why, Rabbi Chia called Rav the son of his sister wasn't anything to do with the familial link. In fact, Rav was the son of his brother. So why did Rabbi Chia call Rav the son of his sister? It was to highlight Rav's incredible knowledge. As the pasuk says, Emor lechachma achosiat. Say to wisdom, you are my sister. Right? Wisdom is often referred to as a sister and not as a brother. Okay, quite beautiful. So the Gemara says, Yatir b'choros al yatir. So why wasn't Rav given permission to permit firstborn animals? Right? It's interesting, right? Before Rabba Bar Chana was given permission for Yoreh, Yodin, and Bechoros. Rav was given permission for Yoreh, Yodin, but not Bechoros. Why not? It's very interesting. Maybe you'll say, well, maybe just Rav didn't possess the expertise in this. I was about to say, it's an expertise. So maybe Rav just didn't know. But one second, but Rav was an incredible Talmud Chacham. How can you say he didn't know? Maybe he just wants to say, again, it's not that he wasn't wise. Again, he wasn't the baki, he wasn't an expert in mumin. Right? He wasn't an expert in blemishes. You don't know what you don't know. Again, that doesn't mean he wasn't an outstanding Talmud Chacham. No one is an expert in all areas. Rav said, Shmona Asar Chadashim Gadalti Eitzel Roa Behema Leida Ezemum Kavua Ve'ezemum Over. But one second, Rav said, I spent 18 months apprenticing by the shepherds in order to go ahead and know what is a blemish that will heal versus what is a blemish that will heal. But remember again, in order for a bachar, a firstborn animal, to not have firstborn sanctity and just be treated like a regular animal, in order for that to happen, so Allah said the mum has to be a mum that is a mum eino over. It's not going to heal. But a mum over, a mum that's going to heal, ultimately doesn't disqualify the animal. Well, again, Rav says, I spent a year and a half going and apprenticing with the shepherds in order to go ahead and know what's a mum over, what's not a mum over. So Rav obviously knew what he was talking about. So if Rav knew what he was talking about, why was he not certified to be matir bechoros? To which the Gemara says, Ela lechalik lo kavod l'Rav bar Chana. Rather again, interestingly enough, because they had certified Rabbi Bar Chana they didn't want to certify Rav as well, because this was out of deference to HaRav Chaim. If Rav was certified, also people would go to Rav, and they wouldn't go to Rav HaRav Chaim. Look at Rashi, second line down from the top. L'chalei kavod l'Rabbo, k'dei she'inagu bo b'nei baval kabod, shavek le'hai chashivusa. Dilu l'Rav, havunagu be'yakar b'lav hachi. So I say, here's, it's so beautiful, right? In other words, Rav, when Rav came to Bavel, that was tremendous. And Rav would have been accorded much honor, whether or not he's involved with besuros. Rav Baruch Avraham, on the other hand, wasn't the sage of the same standing as Rav, so they wanted to give him this designation of going ahead and pasking on besuros, so that he should have his chashivos. He should have his chashivos. Incredible. So the Gemara says, the other possibility is mishum hagufei. The Rav Bikir B'mumi Tvei. So we'll say actually the reason is just the opposite. Rav was such an expert, V'shari Mumi Delo Yadi Inshi. So this is fascinating. Rav was actually an incredible expert, and part of the problem was that he would actually permit blemishes that people did not normally think should be permitted. V'amri ki agavna shara Rav v'asul mishrei mum over. We'll say, people would say, oh, Rav permitted this type of blemish, right? And if he permitted this type of blemish, then this type of blemish should also be okay. And meanwhile, again, their extrapolation was flawed. So I'll say, it's fascinating. This is where it comes from, like, Rav was too good, right? You're too good, right? You're too much of an expert. It's not good. So it's actually really fascinating. So because they needed sometimes in life, it's fascinating. Sometimes in life, you don't need the best person. You don't need the best, right? What you need is just someone who's really good. Because sometimes the best is actually not the person who's best suited for the job, right? Sometimes the best actually comes with a bit too much nuance. We just need someone who's really good at what they do. Fascinating. So the concern over here is that Rav, look at Rashi just a moment. See, Rav was such an expert that he was even able to detect things that people didn't realize was a mum, and he would say, oh, this is a mum. The problem just is, what do? People take a psak halacha, and what do they do with it? Oh, come on, you all know exactly what they do with it, right? They take a psak halacha that's said in one place, and what happens? Suddenly again, you become the posek, right? And what happens? We'll apply it here, and we'll apply it there, and we'll extrapolate over here. So there's new branches of Yiddishkeit that are starting, right? And again, and all different things. So the problem with Rav is he was too nuanced and too good. It actually wasn't healthy for the system. Rav Avraham was actually not as great of an expert as Rav, but that was fine. That's what the system needed. Incredible. Gemara says, Yore. So the Gemara says, I understand. So now remember again, when both Rav and Rabbi Rachana came down to Bavel, so sheyichyeh asked on their behalf, Yore. They know Isser v'heter, can they pass Isser v'heter? The Gemara says, I understand. Yore, I gomer reshus lamali mishkal. I understand. If a Talmud Chacham came to Bavel, and he knew how to paskin in matters of Isser v'heter, right? Why does he need the permission of the Reish Galusa? In other words, let's take a step back. When were we introduced to the concept of getting permission from the Reish Galusa? When were we introduced to that? Right? About 7 minutes ago. Right? So again, right? So remember again, that was on Amud Aleph. That's if you want to be a Yachid Mumcha, right? You want to adjudicate cases of monetary law on your own. You need the Reshus of the Reish Galusa. And what does the Reshus of the Reish Galusa, what does it give you? It gives you malpractice insurance, right? It gives you professional coverage. If you make a mistake, you are covered. So the Gemara says, I don't understand. When it comes to Yoreh, when it comes to just Isser v'heter, I don't understand. So Rav comes to Bavel, somebody calls him and asks him a Hilchos Shabbos question, so he needs the permission of the Reish Galusa to pass on that. Someone asks him a Hilchos Nida Shaila, he needs the permission. I don't understand. If you have the knowledge, you can paskin. If you don't have the knowledge, don't paskin. What's going on over here? To which the Gemara says, Mishum Maise Shahaya. Shabbos said, this is fascinating. Because of an episode that occurred. What occurred? This is great. I mean, it's not great, but it's great. Nisanya, we learn to this. Pam achas halach Rebbe l'makom echad. One time, Rebbe went to a place. Scholar resident, went to a place. V'rabbenei Adam shemegavlin isa seim b'tumah, and he saw that people were kneading the dough in a state of tumah. in a state of tumah. Now, what does that mean? Rashi says, they were not makbid that the utensils used for making bread should be tar. So I will say, so again, now I just want to point out, at first glance, this is not necessarily a problem, because if it's chulin, then again, you could eat chulin b'tumah. The problem is, the concern just is, if you have kohanim, leviim, and there is truma, it can be problematic. So Rebbe saw that they just weren't makbid on the halachos of tara at all. So they were making their bread in a state of tumah. Amar lahem, mipnei ma'atem megablen iso sechem b'tumah. So Rebbe said to them, Chevra, why is it that no one's makbid to make their chulin b'tara? Right? Why is that? So listen to this. Amrullah, Talmud echad ba lekan. One time we had another scholar in residence. The Talmud Chacham came here. V'hora lanu mei b'tzaim ein machshirin. And he taught us that marsh water, maybe some means water that comes from a marsh, is not machshir. And I remember again, in order for something to become tamei, what has to happen? The item has to be hochshel l'tumah. It has to be readied and receptive to tumah. Generally, again, how does an object become readied and receptive to tumah? How? Contact with a liquid, one of the 7 liquids. So listen to this. So they said, oh, no, Rebbe, you've got it all wrong. We have no tumah problems over here. No tumah problems. Do you know why? Because one time, those in a scholar in residence, Talmud Chacham came along and said that marsh water doesn't make something receptive to tumah. And good news, and we only use marsh water. Right? We only use marsh water. Right? Poland marsh water. Right? Poland spring, Poland marsh water. Right? We only use marsh water. That's it. So therefore, again, we have no problems with tumah. Only one problem. He didn't say mei bitzaim, which means marsh water, but who mei beitzim darshalahu. So he said eggs, right? In other words, a liquid of eggs is not one of the liquids that makes something receptive to tumah. It's like mei peros, just like fruit juices, right? This does not make something receptive to tumah. Mei beitzim darshalahu ve'enu savar mei bitzaim. So he said mei beitzim, and they thought he said mei bitzaim v'to nami baha. And they also made the following mistake. So they said mei karmiyun umei figa psulin mipnei shein mei bitzaim. So ultimately, they will say, furthermore, again, they made a mistake of another halacha. They will say, for a paraduma. Remember, again, paraduma, the way it works is you have to go ahead and you take the ashes and you mix it with water. So the halacha is that the water that comes from the karmion and that comes from figa is pasul. Now, why is that? Because it's marsh water. And I both remember again, for paraduma, what do you need? You need spring water. Mayim chayim. Right? You need spring water. And they thought like this. So both say. So they pieced together a number of pieces of information. Now it happens to be they were correct that marsh water cannot be used for paraduma. But what they did is fascinating. They linked together multiple pieces of information, one correct, one wrong, to come out with an erroneous conclusion. And they said like this. What do you see? Since marsh water doesn't work for para aduma, i.e. it can't affect tara, that means also it's not the type of water that makes things receptive to tumah. Furthermore, this Talmud Chacham told us that maybe marsh water doesn't go ahead and make something hoksha, doesn't make something receptive to tumah. Velohi, I will say, and the truth is they're wrong on all accounts. Hasam le'inyin chatas be'inyin mayim chayim. Hacha achshure koldu machshiri. So we'll say by paraduma, the reason why marsh water doesn't work is because marsh water is not spring water. By paraduma, you need spring water. That's why. But marsh water absolutely works as the type of liquid as water to make something receptive to be mekabel tumah. And then again, they compounded the mistake by saying, but when this Talmud Chacham came along, he said mei beitzim. They thought he said mei bitzayim. What happened? So obviously, I just want to point out how incredible this is, right? So Rebbe comes to this place, and this is like a mess. This is a mess. But these are good people, right? No one here was acting out purposely. Again, they just totally misunderstood the shir. They misunderstood the shir, and they misheard the shir. Tana ba'osa shah gazru. So we'll say after Rebbe saw this, they enacted the following ruling. Talmud al Yora ele imkin nito mishus merabo. A person should not paskin unless, of course, he has rishus from his Rebbe. So we'll say essentially what happened after that. Now, if you notice, by the way, the Gemara doesn't name the person in this story. It just says Talmud, right? Talmud. First, it also doesn't say Talmud Chacham. It just says Talmud. So this guy came, and he went ahead and he gave a shir. And I will say again, one of the most important things that if someone is going to paskin halacha, one of the most important things they have to do is what? Make sure that what they're saying is explicitly clear and cannot be misunderstood. So obviously this guy came, and obviously you can see how people can make a mistake, especially in an unlearned audience, between mei beitzim and mei bitzaim, especially if their primary water source was marsh water. So this was like a perfect storm that resulted in this erroneous practice of these townspeople. So Rebbe sees this, and the way they paskin is, you know what? No one paskins halacha without rishus from your Rebbe. You have to get permission. So we'll say, so this is with the concept ultimately, and that's why even for Yorah, right? That's why for even matters of Isser Beheter, right? When these Rabbanim come down from Eretz Yisrael to Bavel, they have to get permission to paskin halacha. Incredible. Tanchum, Bereid Rabbi Ami, Ikla Lachatar. So we'll say, so what happened? So Tanchum, the son of Rabbi Abi, went to this place, Chatar. Rashi says over here, a makom, place. Darish lahu. He dashed in the following idea: Mutter lilsos chitin bepesach. You're allowed to go ahead and scald grain on Pesach. Now, okay, let's talk about this. Mutter lilsos. Rashi says, actually, take it back. Not scald. Lishros ma'at b'mayim l'kotsha b'machtashas below chayshinan lechimutz hoil v'kotshan yat. So remember again, if you have wheat, so you want to be able to separate again the kernels from the chaff. So one of the ways apparently they used to do this was soak it for a couple of moments to just make it a little bit looser, and then pound off the chaff and extrapolate the kernel. So Tanchum, the son of Rabbi Ami, paskin that you could do this even on Pesach. Now what's the chiddush in this? So generally, again, grain and water on Pesach is a no-no, right? It's a big no-no, right? That's what I say. We don't make matzah on Pesach. Right? You can't make matzah on Pesach. But 1 second, matzah's kosher Pesach. You're right, but there is a concern that if you get it wrong, what could happen? Chas v'shalom chametz on Pesach, which is obviously very severe. So here, Tanchum is coming along and saying that halacha l'maisa, you could soak the wheat in the water for just because again, this was only done for a couple of moments before it was taken out. There's no chametz issue. So Amrulo, they said to him, Lav Rebbe, mini diminsur ikahacha. So they said to him, 1 second, Tanchum, right, Rabmani is here. There's a greater Talmud Chacham in this place. Why are you passing halacha? Right, Rabmani, right, diminsur is here. Ikahacha v'tanya, Talmud al Yora halacha b'makom rabo. So the people gave a little bit of Musar to Tanchum. In other words, they're not necessarily even going ahead and disputing what it is that he's saying. But what they're asking on is the process. Either it's his Rebbe or there's a greater Talmud Chacham in this place. So the Gemara says, the time we learn, Talmud al Yora halacha b'makom rabo, a Talmud, the student, should not pass halacha in the presence of his Rebbe. Ela imkein hayarachok b'mero shalosh parsos keneged machane Yisrael. Unless, of course, the Rebbe is at least 3 parsos away. Why 3 parsos? That is the size of the Jewish encampment in the desert. Amar lahu lav adatai. Tanchum said, I'm sorry, I didn't know. And had I known, I would not have passed it. Now again, what is this doing here? So again, this is all part of the same sugya. That before passing halacha, you need permission from your Rebbe. And if there is someone greater than you in the proximity, you do not pass in halacha. One more story. Rabbi Chia, Chazir el Hugavra, Tavakai bebeis akvaris. Listen to this. Rabbi Chia saw a guy who was walking in the cemetery. Now I will say, interestingly enough, what's the case over here? So this was a Kohen. So Rabbi Chia sees a Kohen walking in the cemetery. Amrlei, Lav ben ish ploni Kohen ata? Aren't you the son of a Kohen? Right, you son of a Kohen, right? Aren't you the son of a Kohen? Right? What are you doing in here? Now I will say, by the way, it is actually interesting, by the way, if you notice how he refers to him, right? He doesn't say to him, aren't you a Kohen? He says to him, aren't you the son of a Kohen? What a profound way to give Musar when you have to give Musar, right? In other words, by saying he's the son of a Kohen, is going ahead and not immediately attaching blame to the individual himself. Sometimes if you have to give Musar to a person, the best way to do it is in a way that doesn't make the person feel terrible about themselves. So Becca says to this guy, aren't you the son of a Kohen? So Amalei, he said, yes, in Avua Dahu Gavra. So my father, Giva Einayim Hava. I will say this is fascinating. Giva Einayim means, literally again, he had, literally translated, high eyes. Rashi says, Halach Achar Einav. He followed his eyes. He succumbed to his temptations. Havanasan Einav Begrusha. He went ahead and he decided to marry. He became a little bit wrapped up in a divorcee. He married her. This is this guy's mother, the Chilalo. And as a result, ultimately, again, yes, my father is a Kohen, but I am a Chalal. I'm a Chalal. Now, Rashi points out over here, what is this story doing here? Right? Rashi says, Lo isparish lon my bayahacha. Rashi says, Rabbi Chia, Chazeh, my bayahacha, Benira be'inai, ta'asla shalinan afagab de Rabbi Chia, Tamido de Rabbi Hava, or become de Rabbi Hava, lo chalak lo kaval Rabbi mila hafrish zem mina iser. De le'inyan afrushe mi isura, aim kan mora halacha b'bnei Rabbi. This is incredible. What do we just get finished saying? If you want to paskin halacha, what do you need to do? You need to get permission, right? You need to get smicha from your Rebbe. Don't paskin without permission. And furthermore, again, if you're in a city and your Rebbe is there, or a greater Talmud Chacham is there, don't paskin the presence of a greater Talmud Chacham. There's an exception to this rule. What's the exception? If you see a Yid committing a prohibition, committing an Aveira, then again, step in if you can and try to prevent it. And don't worry about, is there a greater Talmud Chacham, not a greater Talmud Chacham, you have smicha, you don't have permission. If you see a Yid doing something wrong, and you could step in and prevent it, then again, we do not worry about the chain of command in that situation. So even though Rabbi Chia was a Talmud of Rav, they lived in the same place. Rav was a great Talmud Chacham. When Rabbi Chia saw this Kohen entering into the cemetery, and again, he stepped in order to prevent him from transgressing. Again, it turned out that the kid was a Chalal and not a Kohen, but Lamais, again, that's the message of the Torah. Which I will say is a tremendous Musar Haskell as well. You know, in life, there is like this very fine line between when you see something that has to get done. Sometimes not everything has to get done by me. In life, it's important to know that not everything is your business and not everything is your problem. And sometimes you have to let certain things be cared for by other people. But then there are other times where if you see something happening, you have to step in. You have to step in. And life is this delicate dance about knowing when to step in versus when, not even delegate is the wrong word. When do I step in and act versus when do I absent and allow others to take the role. So again, just this incredible dialectic. But I'll point out over here how profound and overwhelming this is, that Rabbi Chia sees a situation, and again, it could have been so easy, A, for him to look away. Right now, my problem, I don't know this guy's story. Or B, to go in and say, you know what, there's someone greater than me. But I will say, so often in life, we encounter situations, and I'm the one who's there in that moment. I'm the one who has the opportunity to affect change. And it's so tempting sometimes just to look the other way. But often the Rebbe Shalom places us in circumstances because it is uniquely us who has the ability to affect change in that very moment. Everybody, so stop over for today. Shkoyach, everyone. Shkoyach, incredible.